Good morning and welcome back to Math 7. So today we are going to be taking a look at some more statistical stuff, measures of central tendency and reading graphs to find it. So let's just remember that measures of central tendency, so these are a value that describes the center or middle of a data set. So there are different types of middles. We'll notice that for all these things we get different numbers most of the time. So there's not just one center here. It depends on how you kind of look at your data. So we've got some things that we've seen in the past that we'll continue with practicing today. So we've got the mean, which is the average. So, of course, to find the mean, all we do is add up all of the numbers that we have in our data set and then divide by how many numbers that we have that we added up. So, this is kind of a funny hint. So your parents might get mean if your math average gets low. So mean and average are the same thing. So remember, you add up all the items and divide by how many there are. So the median is the data item that is in the exact middle, that's in the middle of the data set when it's arranged from smallest to biggest. So what we have to do is we have to rearrange our data if it's mixed up from smallest number to biggest number, and then work our way to find the exact middle. If we have two numbers in the middle, then we got to take the mean of those two numbers. And one way I often help kids remember what the median is the median is the strip that's in the middle of the highway. It divides one direction of traffic from the other direction of traffic. So it's in the exact middle of our data. And then the mode is the data item that appears the most in our data set. So sometimes there's more than one, and sometimes there isn't one at all. So if we have a set of data with one of each number, well, then there is no mode. And we'll take a look at some data later. So the range tells us how spread out, let me rewrite that looks bad, how spread out our data is. So a small range tells us that the data is kind of clumped together, clumped or clustered together. A large range indicates that the data is spread out, between a lot of values. So to find the range, all we gotta do is take our smallest number and subtract it from the biggest number. So biggest number minus smallest number will give us our range. So the best graphs to find measures of central tendencies are stem and leaf plots and line plots. And that is because these graphs will show us every item of data in there. So we'll say these graphs show each data item. So with histograms, we had intervals, right? So we couldn't, even if we had like our bar go up to 7 in the, let's say we had a 5 to 12 range, we had 7 items in there, we don't know what number each of those is. So with stem and leaf plots and line plots, it'll show every piece of data within our set. So we're going to work these together. So stem and leaf plots, if you've never seen them before, they can look a little funny. So the stem here is the tens place, and the leaf is the ones place. So if I take a random thing here, let's say we take a look at this number here, well then that's going to represent the number 88, because we have an 8 for our tens place and an 8 for our ones place. And once we get up to double digits, so that's a bad example because there's no data for that. Let's take a look at one of these 11 and 1s. Well, then we'll just put an 11 in our tens place, which is going to indicate 110, and then add that 1 from our ones place, and that'll be 111. So the things on the left are our tens numbers, and the leafs are our ones numbers. So how many data items do we have here? Well, we got to count them out. So each ones place will tell us that we have a data point there. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 items of data there. So we can also figure out some easy stuff here. So our minimum value, well, that's going to be the very first number we have in our set. And our stem is 3, which means it is a number in the 30s. And our leaf is 0, so our minimum value is 30. And then what is our maximum value? Well, that's going to be indicated by the very last point we have here. And the stem is an 11, so that's going to be 11 in the tens place, which indicates 110. And then finally, we have that 1 in our leaf space, which makes our maximum value 111. All right, so now we're asked to find the range of this data. So remember, range is the biggest minus the smallest. So we're going to go 111 minus 30. 1 minus 0 is 1. Borrow, and 11 minus 3 is 8. And there it is. We just found our range. So the range of this data is 81. So it's kind of a big number, so that means that this data is pretty well spread out. Nothing is too clumped together. The mean, okay, here's where things are going to get a little interesting. So remember, I'm going to mark off as I go. So let me open up a calculator real quick. All right, so we have to add up each of these. So this first one is going to represent 30 plus 31 plus 39 plus 41 plus 48 plus 49 plus 50 plus 50 again plus 51 plus 55 plus 55 plus 62, so we've got a lot of adding going on here, plus 66 for that guy, plus 67 plus 67 plus 67. Moving on to our 70s, we've got plus 71, and then an 80 there, plus another 80, plus 87, plus 87, plus 88, almost done, plus 111 for that guy, plus 111 for that guy. Holy smokes, we get a big old number there. So 1,543, but we have to divide that by how many we added together, right? So divided by 24, and we get, let me just double check that this is correct. One second, sorry, pulled up the wrong thing. Wrong thing again. All right, so our calculator tells us 64.29, tells us to round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to call that 64.3. So all I did was add up each of these data points and then divide by how many there are, and that gives us the mean. All right, let's erase all this so I can see it again. Now the mode, we've got to find the number that happens the most often. Well, 30 only happens once, 31 once, 39 once. So we're looking for numbers where we have more of the same leaf than any others. So for me, that looks like we've got a 67 here, a 67 here, and a 67 here. So we've got 3 of those. And then all the other ones that I see, I only have 2 of. So I've only got 2 50s, I've got 2 55s, 2 80s, and 2 87s. So it's looking like 67 is going to be our mode. And then finally, when we are set up in a stem and leaf plot, we can find the median by working our way backwards. So I'm going to delete the smallest and the biggest, then the next smallest and the next biggest. I'm just going to keep working my way down like that. When I get rid of one side, I got to get rid of the other. Continuing to work my way down. All right, so I end up with 62 and 66. Whoops. So for the median, we have to add 62 and 66, since there's 2 median numbers there, which is going to give me 128. And then I have to divide 128 by 2, because I added 2 numbers there, and we get 64. All right, so not that complicated, but we just got to understand stem and leaf plots, and then sometimes we'll have quite a bit of adding to do when we are finding these things. All right, and finally our last question here is, what percent of the numbers are at most 55? So that means this is the biggest number I'm going to go to, and at most means 55 or less. So we've got 55 and 55, there's 2 of them, 51, bam, 50 and 50, so everything that is smaller than that, we're going to count. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 11. And looks like 11 out of those 24, which is going to give us 0.458, and that's 4583, and we're rounding to the tenths, so we get 0.4583. That's going to give us 45.8% of the numbers are at most 55, so they're 55 or less. All right, so we can use stem and leaf plots in our favor there, kind of easy. And then, so I think we've done line plots in the past in 6th grade, so we won't worry about those today. So, just remember our stem and leaves. So the stem is the tens place, the leaves is the ones place. So once again, if I am looking at this point of data here, the stem is a 5 and a leaf is a 1, so 51 is our number there. So along with remembering the process of finding our mean, median, mode, and range, the stem and leaf plots might be the most difficult thing we've got to deal with today. And they're not even that bad once we get the feel for them. We just got to make sure that we're keeping track of those data points and don't lose any along our way in calculating things. So that is it for today. We've got our independent practice starting on this page. So go ahead and don't forget about that when you're doing your independent practice. So these first 8 problems should show up on your assignment. If you have any questions for me or you get stuck with the stem and leaf plots or anything, be sure to send me an email or send me a message on Canvas and I can reply to you to help you out. Now, there is also an IXL to do afterwards, so it looks like CC2. So after you finish up your independent practice here, you're going to be working on CC2 on IXL. So once again, get a hold of me if you have any issues and I'll try to help you out. And make sure you get your assignment here done and your IXL done as well. Thanks, and I'll